They called Laurel Hayes broken, so they hid her before the Alpha King could decide for himself. The key turned outside her bedroom door with a quiet click. Laurel did not move. On the other side, Meredith Hayes spoke in the same calm voice she used when ordering flowers arranged or candles replaced. "Keep Laurel upstairs. The king must never see her." Her footsteps faded down the third-floor hall. Laurel remained beside the window, her mother's old silver hairpin pressed into her palm. Downstairs, Hayes Manor glittered for the Royal Moon Gala. Music floated through the floorboards, crystal glasses chimed, carriage wheels rolled across the circular drive. Tonight, noble families from across the territory had come to present their unmarried daughters to Alpha King Everett Kane. Brielle Hayes had spent months preparing for this moment. Laurel had spent the same months being reminded she would not be part of it. "You would only embarrass the family," Meredith had told her. Broken. That was the word everyone used now. It had started 6 years earlier, after Laurel turned 17 and failed to complete her first shift. Other wolves her age had spoken excitedly about the moment their second nature awakened. Laurel remembered only silence, no transformation, no powerful instinct, nothing Meredith considered worthy of the Hayes name. After that, invitations stopped coming. Family portraits were taken without her. Guests were told she was ill, resting, away. Eventually, Laurel became very good at disappearing. Earlier that evening, she had watched from the doorway as Brielle stood before a mirror in a silver gown that had once belonged to Laurel's mother. Laurel recognized the tiny moon-shaped embroidery along the sleeves. "That was my mother's," she had said softly. Brielle glanced at her reflection. Meredith adjusted the jeweled clasp at Brielle's shoulder without looking back. "Beautiful things belong to women who can be seen." Laurel had swallowed the answer rising in her throat. She always did. Now the words followed her through the locked room. On the bedside table sat the pale medicine Meredith required her to drink every evening. Laurel had taken it for 6 years. Meredith said it helped control the weakness left by her failed shift. Laurel had never known its name. She only knew the bitter taste and the heavy calm that usually followed. Tonight her hand had shaken while lifting the glass. Nearly half the liquid spilled across the table. Meredith had been too busy preparing Brielle to notice. Laurel drank what remained. Minutes passed. The familiar heaviness came, but weaker than usual. Laurel frowned and touched the center of her chest. Something felt different. For one strange second, she imagined movement somewhere deep inside her. A faint pressure, almost a response. Then it vanished. Laurel closed her eyes. Hope could be cruel when you had lived without it long enough. She turned toward the window. Lanterns burned along nearly a quarter-mile of driveway, their warm light cutting through the autumn dusk. Guests gathered below in formal gowns and dark coats. Servants hurried toward the entrance. Then every movement seemed to stop at once. A ceremonial horn sounded from the front gate. Laurel leaned closer to the glass. Black horses appeared between the trees. Behind them came royal guards wearing dark uniforms marked with silver wolves. At the center rode the royal standard, a pale wolf beneath a crescent moon. Alpha King Everett Kane had arrived. Laurel had never seen him, but she knew the stories. A ruler who had rejected every political match offered to him. A king whose wolf had never publicly recognized a mate. Someone far beyond the small, hidden life she had been given. In the courtyard below, Everett stepped down from his carriage. Guests bowed. Meredith hurried forward with Brielle beside her, radiant in silver. Laurel watched from 3 floors above, safely hidden where no one could see her. Then warmth suddenly spread beneath her ribs. She caught her breath. This time, the feeling did not disappear. Something inside her, silent for 6 years, stirred once, then again. Down in the courtyard, Everett Kane took one step toward the manor doors and stopped. His expression changed. Not enough for anyone around him to understand, but deep inside him, the wolf that had ignored every woman placed before him for years suddenly lifted its head. Everett slowly looked toward the upper floors of Hayes Manor. He could not see Laurel behind the glass. He did not know her name. He did not even know Meredith had hidden someone upstairs, but for the first time that night, The Alpha King was no longer interested in the women waiting to be presented to him. Laurel stayed at the window long after the royal procession disappeared beneath the front portico. She told herself the warmth beneath her ribs meant nothing. A missed dose. Nerves. Too much noise in a house that had never welcomed noise near her room. Still, she could not ignore the faint sensation that lingered inside her. It felt almost like someone had knocked from the other side of a wall she had believed empty for years. Below, the first notes of the formal welcoming music rose through Hayes Manor. Laurel stepped away from the glass and sat on the edge of her bed. 6 years earlier, she had waited for her wolf with the same frightened hope. She had been 17 then, standing barefoot beneath a full moon while Meredith, Brielle, and several family elders watched from the garden. Brielle had shifted the previous year. Everyone expected Laurel to follow. She remembered closing her eyes. She remembered reaching inward. For one brief moment, something had answered. A flicker of warmth. A presence. Then Meredith had pressed a cup into her hands and told her the shaking meant she was becoming ill. Laurel had drunk it. By morning, the presence was gone. Her first shift never came. After that, Meredith stopped using the word late. She began using broken. At first, Laurel fought it. She read old family journals. She asked visiting healers questions whenever Meredith was out of earshot. She even tried staying awake through the night, hoping her wolf might return under the moon. Nothing changed. Eventually, hope became exhausting. The medicine became routine. 1 cup every evening. The same pale color. The same bitter finish. Meredith never allowed anyone else to prepare it. Laurel had once forgotten to drink it when she was 19. She remembered that night more clearly now. She had been reading near the window when a sudden warmth moved through her chest. Not pain, not sickness. Something alive. She had even dreamed of running beneath silver trees, fast and free, with another heartbeat matching hers somewhere beyond the hills. Meredith discovered the untouched cup the next morning. Laurel had never seen her aunt move so quickly. "You cannot miss this again," Meredith had said, gripping the glass so tightly her knuckles turned white. Laurel had apologized. Meredith had watched until every drop was gone. At the time, Laurel thought the fear in her aunt's face was concern. Sitting in the locked room now, she was no longer certain. A cheer rose faintly from downstairs. The presentation must have begun. Laurel pictured Brielle entering the grand hall in their family silver, chin lifted exactly as Meredith had trained her. Brielle would look beautiful. She always did. Laurel did not hate her for that. Hating Brielle would have been easy, and Laurel had learned long ago that easy feelings were rarely the truest ones. Brielle had enjoyed being chosen first. She had enjoyed being praised. But sometimes, when Meredith was not watching, Brielle had left books outside Laurel's room or quietly sent up dessert after formal dinners. Small kindnesses, never brave ones. Laurel looked toward the pale stain where the medicine had spilled across the bedside table. Her eyes narrowed. Half a dose. The thought should have frightened her. Instead, curiosity slipped quietly beneath the fear. Downstairs, the music stopped so suddenly that Laurel stood. A man's voice carried faintly through the floor, too distant to make out the words, but deep enough to silence the room around him. Everett Kane. Laurel moved toward the door before she realized she was doing it. She placed her palm against the wood. Nothing. Then the strange warmth returned, stronger. It traveled from the center of her chest to her fingertips, gentle but unmistakable. Laurel pulled her hand back. "What is happening to me?" she whispered. There was no answer, yet somewhere far below, in the grand hall, Everett stood before the first line of waiting women, while Meredith watched him with a carefully practiced smile. One daughter after another stepped forward. He greeted each of them with perfect courtesy. His wolf remained silent. Then Everett turned slightly toward the eastern side of the manor. The faint scent he had noticed outside was there again, barely present. Rain, lavender, something soft beneath both. His gaze lifted toward the ceiling. Meredith saw it. For the first time that evening, her smile faltered. Upstairs, Laurel heard the royal attendant announce, "All rise for His Majesty." She should have stepped away from the door. Instead, she leaned closer. and deep inside the silence where her wolf had slept for 6 years, something answered the sound of Everett Kane's voice. The sound of Everett Kane's voice reached Laurel only as a low murmur through the floor, yet something inside her answered before she could stop it. Warmth spread beneath her ribs, steady this time, no longer easy to dismiss as imagination. Laurel backed away from the locked door. Her pulse had quickened, but she was not afraid. That was what confused her most. For 6 years, every strange sensation in her body had been followed by the same warning from Meredith. Rest. Take your medicine. Do not make yourself worse. Tonight, for the first time, Laurel wondered what worse actually meant. Downstairs, Alpha King Everett Kane stood beneath the great chandelier of Hayes Manor, while the last notes of the welcoming music faded into silence. Nearly 100 guests faced him. Noble alphas stood beside their families. Young women waited in a careful line near the center of the grand hall, each dressed for the chance to be remembered. Everett had attended gatherings like this before. Different houses, different faces. Always the same hopeful silence when he entered. His wolf had never cared. The first woman stepped forward. Everett greeted her politely. Nothing. The second bowed and spoke with practiced confidence. Nothing. A third smiled too brightly. Still nothing. Meredith watched from beside the musicians, with her hands folded at her waist. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes followed every movement Everett made. Then Brielle's name was announced. She crossed the floor in her silver gown with the grace of someone who had rehearsed every step. Laurel's mother's embroidery shimmered along the sleeves beneath the candlelight. "Brielle Hayes," Meredith said proudly. "My daughter." Everett offered his hand for the ceremonial dance. Brielle accepted it with a smile that made several guests whisper approvingly. They moved across the floor beneath the chandelier. Brielle was elegant, well-spoken, beautiful in exactly the way the evening expected her to be. Everett felt nothing. No pull, no shift in instinct, no recognition. His wolf remained quiet. Brielle noticed the distance in his expression and tried again. "I hope Hayes Manor has been comfortable for you, Your Majesty." "It has been welcoming," Everett replied. The answer was courteous, nothing more. Across the room, Meredith's smile tightened. Upstairs, Laurel heard the music begin again. She could not see the dance, but she knew the melody. Brielle had practiced to it for weeks. Laurel pictured the silver gown turning beneath the lights. She should have felt envy. Instead, she felt that strange warmth again, stronger whenever the music paused and Everett's voice carried faintly through the house. Laurel pressed both hands against the front of her dress. "You are imagining this," she told herself. The words sounded weak even in the empty room. Below, the dance ended. Everett released Brielle's hand and stepped back. Applause filled the hall. Meredith approached quickly. "Perhaps Your Majesty would like another dance." Everett was about to answer when a faint scent touched the edge of his awareness, so subtle he almost missed it. Rain on cool stone. Lavender. Something softer beneath both, quiet enough to disappear when he tried to focus on it. Everett turned his head. The scent was not coming from Brielle. It was not coming from any woman standing before him. His wolf, silent through every introduction, suddenly became alert. Not excited, not certain, listening. Everett scanned the grand hall. Open doors led toward the dining room. Servants moved along the western corridor. Nothing there. Then the scent returned for only a second. From above. Everett slowly looked toward the eastern side of the ceiling. Meredith saw him do it. Her face changed so quickly that Brielle almost missed it. Almost. "Mother?" Brielle whispered. Meredith did not answer. Her eyes had fixed on the staircase leading toward the upper floors. Upstairs, Laurel stood with her ear near the door, unaware of the look passing between them. She only knew the warmth inside her had become a quiet, living pulse. Down in the grand hall, Everett stopped paying attention to the women waiting before him. He looked toward the east staircase instead. Then, without explanation, the Alpha King stepped out of the receiving line and began walking toward it. Everett had barely reached the east staircase when Laurel heard something crash beyond her door. The sound came from the service landing. A tray struck the floor, followed by a frightened gasp. Laurel moved before she could think. "Hello?" No answer. Then came a smaller sound, someone trying not to cry. Laurel grabbed the handle. Locked. Of course it was. She pressed her ear against the door. "Are you hurt, Miss Laurel?" Emily Carter's voice trembled from the hallway. "I am sorry. I slipped. I cannot get up." Laurel looked at the keyhole, then at the silver hairpin still in her hand. Meredith had warned her never to leave the room. For once, the warning felt smaller than the voice outside. Laurel knelt beside the old latch and slid the narrow end of the hairpin through the gap near the frame. She had watched the housekeeper open stubborn locks this way when the wood swelled in damp weather. Her fingers shook. The pin slipped once. Twice. "Stay with me, Emily." "I am trying." Laurel pushed harder. A quiet click answered. The door opened. She hurried into the hall. Emily sat against the wall near the service landing, pale and embarrassed, one hand pressed around her wrist. Broken glass from the fallen tray glittered several feet away. Laurel avoided it and dropped to her knees beside her. "Do not move yet." "Mrs. Hayes will be angry." "Let her be angry with me." Laurel examined the shallow cut along Emily's wrist. It was not serious, but the younger woman was shaking badly. Laurel tore a clean strip from the inner edge of her own sleeve and wrapped it gently around the injury. "Look at me," she said. "Slow breath in, slow breath out." Emily followed her voice, once, then again. The panic began to leave her face. Laurel smiled. "There, better." She did not notice the footsteps approaching from the staircase. Everett did. He had followed the faint scent through the eastern corridor, expecting perhaps an open window, a passing servant, anything that could explain why his wolf had suddenly become attentive after years of silence. Instead, he reached the landing and stopped. A young woman knelt on the floor beside a frightened servant. Her dress was simple. One sleeve had been torn to make a bandage. A few loose strands of ash-brown hair had fallen across her cheek. She was not dressed for the gala. She was not waiting to impress him. She did not even know he was there. "You are safe," Laurel told Emily softly. "I will help you downstairs when you are ready." Everett felt the scent again, stronger now. Rain, lavender, warm stone after summer light. His wolf rose inside him with such sudden focus that Everett forgot the grand hall waiting below. Laurel finally sensed someone behind her. She turned. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. She recognized him immediately. Everyone in the Northern Territories knew the royal crest embroidered in silver at his collar. Laurel stood too quickly and nearly caught her foot on the edge of her skirt. "Your Majesty." Her gaze dropped. Everett should have answered. He had greeted hundreds of people that evening without hesitation. But the moment Laurel looked away, something in him resisted the distance. The strange awareness he had followed upstairs was no longer faint. It was centered entirely on her. Laurel felt it too. The warmth beneath her ribs surged so clearly that she pressed one hand against her chest. Not pain, not fear. Recognition without understanding. Everett took one careful step closer, stopping well outside her reach. He noticed the locked door standing open behind her, the torn sleeve, the silver hairpin in her other hand. The servant she had helped while the rest of the house celebrated downstairs. None of it matched the polished world waiting for him in the ballroom. "What is your name?" he asked. Laurel opened her mouth, but before she could answer, footsteps sounded rapidly from the far end of the hall. Meredith had seen where the king had gone. Now she was coming after him. Laurel glanced toward the sound. Everett did not. His eyes remained on her. Deep inside him, the wolf that had ignored every woman presented that night finally spoke with absolute certainty. "Mate." Meredith reached the landing just as Laurel lowered her eyes. "Your Majesty, please forgive the interruption." Her voice was calm, almost warm, but Laurel knew that voice. It was the one Meredith used when she was trying hardest not to show anger. Everett did not answer her. His attention remained on Laurel. Deep inside him, his wolf had gone from years of silence to a single, impossible certainty. Mate. Laurel felt nothing so clear, only warmth beneath her ribs, a quiet pull she did not understand. She glanced toward Emily, still seated against the wall with Laurel's makeshift bandage around her wrist. I should help her downstairs, Laurel said. Meredith stepped forward at once. That will not be necessary. A servant can take care of her. Emily lowered her gaze. Laurel felt her shoulders tighten. She knew what came next before Meredith even said it. Return to your room. The words were soft. The command was not. Laurel looked at the open door behind her. For 6 years she had learned that obedience made everything easier. Do not argue. Do not ask. Do not make people uncomfortable with questions they did not want to answer. She took one small step backward. Everett noticed. Is the young woman hurt? He asked. Laurel stopped. For a moment she did not realize he was asking her. Emily? Everett nodded. Laurel looked down at the bandage. The cut is small. She was frightened more than anything. She should rest before walking. I am all right now, Your Majesty, Emily said quietly. Everett gave her a reassuring nod, then turned toward the staircase. Laurel watched him go. Something inside her sank. The feeling surprised her. She had wanted him to leave before Meredith made the situation worse. At least, that was what she had told herself. Everett descended one step, then another. The faint scent behind him weakened. His wolf pushed against the distance immediately. He stopped. The hallway became still. Slowly, he turned back. Laurel was standing exactly where he had left her, clutching her mother's hairpin as if it were the only familiar thing in the room. Look at me, he said. Laurel froze. Meredith's expression changed. Barely, but Laurel saw it. So did Brielle, who had just reached the far end of the corridor. Laurel raised her eyes. The moment her gaze met Everett's, warmth moved through her again, stronger than before. It was not painful. It felt like something waking after a very long sleep. Everett felt his wolf settle. No confusion, no hesitation, only recognition. Laurel swallowed. Your Majesty? Have we met before? No. You are certain? For the first time that night, the edge of a smile touched Laurel's face. I think I would remember meeting the Alpha King. Something softened in Everett's expression. Meredith stepped between them. Laurel has been unwell for years. She rarely sees anyone outside the household. Everett looked at Meredith at last. I asked her. 4 words, nothing more, yet Laurel felt them more deeply than she expected. People had answered for her so often that she had stopped noticing when it happened. Everett had noticed after knowing her for less than 5 minutes. Laurel drew a careful breath. I have not met you before. I rarely leave the estate. Everett's gaze moved past her to the bedroom door. The old latch stood crooked where Laurel had worked it free. Were you locked inside? Meredith answered immediately. For her protection. Everett's eyes returned to Laurel. Is that what you would call it? Laurel hesitated. Her aunt's presence filled the hallway like an old habit. She could feel Meredith waiting for the familiar answer. Yes, of course, whatever you say. Before Laurel could choose, Brielle reached them. Her silver gown shimmered beneath the hallway lights. She looked from Everett to Laurel, then toward her mother. What is going on? Meredith ignored her. Your Majesty, the other guests are waiting downstairs. Brielle's presentation is not finished. I believe it is, Everett said. Brielle's face fell. Meredith went pale. Laurel stared at him, certain she had misunderstood. Everett took one slow step closer, still leaving respectful distance between them. What is your name? He asked. Laurel opened her mouth. Meredith caught her breath. Your Majesty, there is no reason to involve her. Everett's gaze sharpened. Why? Meredith looked at Laurel, then at Brielle, then back at the king. For the first time, her polished certainty cracked. Because she is not like the women downstairs. Everett waited. Meredith had nowhere left to hide the words. Laurel is broken. The warmth inside Laurel went cold, but Everett did not look away from her. If anything, he seemed more interested than before. The word hung between them. Broken. Laurel had heard it so many times that she knew exactly what was supposed to happen next. Her eyes should drop, her shoulders should fold inward. She should make herself small enough for everyone else to feel comfortable again. For one terrible second, she almost did. Then Everett spoke. "What does that mean?" Meredith recovered quickly. "Laurel cannot shift properly. She has never completed the change. Her health has always been delicate, and she is not suitable for a royal presentation." Brielle stood beside her mother in silence, the silver gown catching the light every time she moved. Laurel stared at the floor. Each sentence felt familiar because she had heard versions of them for years. Weak, unwell, unsuitable, not meant for important rooms. Everett looked at Laurel instead of Meredith. "Is that how you describe yourself?" Laurel lifted her eyes slightly. No one had ever asked her that. "I do not know," she admitted. Meredith turned sharply. "Laurel." The warning in her voice was quiet but unmistakable. Laurel felt the old instinct to obey. Then she remembered the locked door behind her. She remembered Emily sitting alone on the landing. She remembered spilling half the medicine and feeling something inside herself wake instead of disappear. "I have never been able to shift," Laurel said carefully. "That part is true." Guests had begun gathering near the bottom of the staircase, drawn by the unusual sight of their king standing in an upstairs corridor instead of returning to the gala. Whispers traveled through the hall. Meredith noticed them and lowered her voice. "Your Majesty, this is a private family matter." Everett's expression remained calm. "You made it public when you described her in front of your guests." Meredith's face tightened. Laurel looked toward him. He was not defending something he understood. He did not know why she had failed to shift. He did not know why she had been hidden. He only knew the way Meredith was speaking about her, and somehow that was enough to make him stop. "Your name," Everett said. Laurel hesitated. Meredith stepped forward. "Her name is not important." Everett did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "I asked her." The corridor fell quiet. Laurel could hear the music continuing somewhere below, strangely distant now. For 6 years, other people had explained her before she could explain herself. Meredith told healers what Laurel felt. Meredith told visitors why Laurel was absent. Meredith told Brielle what Laurel could and could not become. Laurel had slowly stopped noticing how rarely anyone waited for her own answer. Everett waited. "Laurel," she said. Her voice came out softer than she wanted. She tried again. "Laurel Hayes." Everett repeated it once. "Laurel." Something inside her shifted at the sound. Not enough to frighten her. Just enough to remind her of the warmth she had felt when he arrived. Brielle noticed the look that passed between them. "Mother," she whispered. "Why did you never tell anyone she was upstairs?" Meredith ignored the question. "This has gone far enough. Laurel is not registered for presentation. She has no place in this ceremony." "I was not asking about the ceremony," Everett said. His gaze returned to Laurel. "I was asking about her." Meredith's control finally slipped. "She cannot be what you are looking for." The certainty in her voice made Everett pause. "And what exactly am I looking for?" Meredith said nothing. Laurel watched her aunt's face. The fear was back, clearer now. It was the same kind of fear Laurel remembered from the morning she had forgotten her medicine years ago. Not concern, something else. Everett saw it too. He glanced toward Laurel's open bedroom door, then at the broken routine surrounding her. A locked room. A woman who answered every question for her. A family desperate to send him back downstairs. His wolf remained alert beneath his calm. Meredith took Laurel by the elbow and tried to guide her toward the room. Laurel stopped. It was such a small act that no one else might have understood what it cost her. She simply did not move. Meredith looked at her in disbelief. Laurel gently pulled her arm free. Everett's eyes settled on her with new attention. Meredith turned back to him. "Your Majesty, she is broken. There is nothing here for you." Everett was silent for a moment. Then he looked at Laurel, the woman they had kept behind a locked door while presenting everyone else beneath the chandeliers. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet enough that the entire corridor leaned into the silence. "Then why are you so afraid of me seeing her?" Meredith had no answer. For the first time that night, the woman who always knew exactly what to say stood silent beneath the weight of a simple question. Laurel watched her aunt's face carefully. The fear was still there. Not the fear of embarrassment, not the fear of losing face in front of the guests. Something deeper. Everett saw it too. "Laurel is not registered for presentation," Meredith said at last. "The royal household has rules. There are procedures. She does not qualify." Everett glanced toward the guests gathered near the staircase. "I did not ask whether she qualified." Meredith stiffened. "Then what are you asking?" Everett looked at Laurel. "What she wants." The words landed so softly that Laurel almost missed them. No one had asked her that in years. Meredith had decided what medicine she took, where she went, who she saw, what she wore, and even how much of herself she was allowed to show the world. Wanting had become something Laurel did privately, quietly, safely. Everett stepped closer, but stopped several feet away. He did not reach for her. He did not command her. "You can stay here if that is what you choose," he said. "You can return to your room. No one will force you to come downstairs." Meredith released a breath. Then Everett continued. "But if you want to leave this house tonight, take my hand." The hallway went silent. Laurel stared at the hand he extended between them. Meredith's voice came quickly. "Laurel, do not be foolish." Brielle looked at her mother. "Why would it be foolish?" Meredith ignored her. "You are tired. You are unwell. You do not understand what is happening." Laurel almost believed her. She had believed those words for 6 years. Then she looked past Meredith at the open bedroom door. The room was small from here, smaller than she remembered. She thought of all the nights she had sat beside that window while carriages arrived downstairs, all the dinners she had heard but never attended, all the questions Meredith had answered before Laurel could open her mouth. She looked down at the silver hairpin in her palm, her mother's, one of the few things no one had taken from her. Everett waited. He did not tell her what the strange pull between them meant. He did not tell her what his wolf had already recognized. He simply waited for Laurel to decide. Her hand trembled when she lifted it. Meredith stepped forward. "Laurel?" Laurel did not look at her. She placed her hand in Everett's. Warmth moved through her at once. Not the dull heaviness of the medicine, not fear. Something brighter, alive. Laurel gasped softly. Deep inside her, the silence that had lasted 6 years shifted. A faint presence stirred. Then came something she had almost forgotten how to recognize. A wolf. Weak, distant, but there. Laurel's eyes filled before she could stop them. "I felt her," she whispered. Everett's expression changed. "Your wolf?" Laurel nodded. "I thought she was gone." Meredith went pale. Brielle turned toward her mother. "You said Laurel never had one." "This proves nothing," Meredith said. "She is overwhelmed." Laurel barely heard her. For the first time since she was 17, she was listening inward. The presence was already fading, but it had been real. She knew that now. Everett's hand remained steady around hers, gentle enough that she could pull away whenever she wanted. Laurel took one step toward him. Then the hallway tilted. The warmth vanished beneath a sudden wave of dizziness. Everett caught her by the forearm before she lost her balance. "Laurel?" "I am fine," she said automatically, but her voice sounded far away. Dr. Silas Ward, who had followed the gathering crowd upstairs after noticing the delay, moved forward immediately. "Give her space." Everett released Laurel as soon as Silas reached her. The physician checked her pulse, then studied her eyes. Laurel tried to steady her breathing. Silas leaned closer, paused, and frowned. "When did you last eat?" "This afternoon." "Any medicine tonight?" Laurel nodded. The same thing I take every evening. Meredith's face changed. Silas noticed. What medicine? Laurel looked at her aunt. I do not know the name. Silas went very still. He lifted Laurel's wrist again, then caught the faint bitter residue on her breath. His calm expression sharpened. He turned toward Meredith. What have you been giving this girl? Meredith answered too quickly. A tonic, nothing more. Silas did not look convinced. Laurel sat on the edge of a chair someone had brought into the hallway, trying to steady herself while Everett remained nearby without crowding her. What kind of tonic? Silas asked. Meredith folded her hands. Something to help with her condition. What condition? Meredith hesitated. Laurel watched her aunt closely. 6 years of answers had always come easily before. This time, they did not. Silas turned back to Laurel. How long have you taken it? Since I was 17. Every day? Almost. Who prepares it? Laurel looked at Meredith. She does, or someone she sends. Brielle stared at her mother. You told me it was medicine for weakness. It is, Meredith said. That is enough. Silas shook his head. No, it is not. He asked for the cup from Laurel's room. Emily, steadier now, retrieved it herself. Silas examined the pale residue along the bottom, then smelled it carefully. His expression changed. Silverleaf. Laurel had never heard the word before. Everett had. A suppressor? He asked. Silas nodded. In controlled amounts, it can quiet an unstable wolf for short periods. Used over years, it can weaken scent, interfere with shifting, and leave the wolf withdrawn. Laurel felt the hallway become strangely cold. Withdrawn? Not gone, Silas said gently. Withdrawn. Meredith stepped forward. You cannot know that from one cup. Then we verify it. Everett's voice was quiet. No accusations, no conclusions. We preserve the records and find the truth. Meredith's eyes flashed toward him. This is my home, and Laurel is not evidence you get to hide. Everett did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Silas asked where household medicines were kept. Meredith refused to answer. Brielle did. The estate dispensary, behind the kitchen. Meredith turned sharply. Brielle? If it is only medicine, Brielle said, then there should be nothing to fear. That silenced her mother. The dispensary records were brought upstairs. So was a locked ledger from the estate office. Meredith insisted the purchases belonged to the household. Silas read the entries carefully. Silverleaf, repeated orders, small amounts, month after month, year after year, beginning 6 years earlier. Laurel stared at the dates, her 17th birthday, her failed shift, the medicine, the silence inside her. All of it sat on the page in neat handwriting. Was I ever broken? She asked. Silas looked at her. I cannot tell you what your first shift would have been without this. But I can tell you something important. Nothing here proves you were broken. Laurel closed her eyes. The words hurt in a way cruelty never had. Cruelty she knew how to survive. This was different. This was the possibility that 6 years of shame had been built on a lie. Everett noticed her grip tighten around the silver hairpin. He wanted to speak, but stopped himself. This truth belonged to Laurel first. Brielle sank into the chair across from her. Mother, why? Meredith said nothing. Everett ordered the estate records secured and asked whether Meredith kept private family files. Brielle looked toward the second-floor study. Meredith moved immediately, too quickly. Laurel saw it. So did Everett. The key ring at Meredith's waist suddenly mattered. The study was open in front of Silas, Laurel, Brielle, and 2 royal clerks. Inside a locked drawer, they found an old medical record bearing Laurel's name. The document did not promise a crown. It did not name Everett. It recorded only a rare lunar resonance pattern with possible compatibility to the Kane royal bloodline. Meredith had found it after Laurel's parents died. Laurel looked from the paper to her aunt. You did not know he was my mate. Meredith's silence answered before her words did. I knew you might take everything from Brielle. Laurel stared at her. So you made me believe there was nothing inside me? Brielle covered her mouth. Everett's expression went still. Meredith tried to speak again, but Laurel rose. Her legs were unsteady, yet her voice was not. Everett took one step toward Meredith. Laurel lifted a hand. No. Everyone looked at her. She drew one slow breath. She has spoken for me for 6 years. Laurel turned toward the woman who had decided her medicine, her future, and even the meaning of her own body. She will not speak for me now. 3 weeks later, Laurel walked into the Royal Council chamber at Blackridge Citadel without anyone telling her where to stand. The difference seemed small. To her, it felt enormous. Meredith sat across the chamber with legal representatives beside her. Brielle waited several seats away, pale and quiet. Everett stood near the council table, but he did not speak for Laurel. He had promised he would not. The evidence spoke clearly enough. 6 years of Silverleaf purchases, the medical record hidden in Meredith's private study, statements from household staff, Laurel's own treatment history. When the council asked Meredith why she had continued the suppressor for so long, Meredith finally stopped pretending it had been necessary. I protected my daughter's future, she said. Laurel looked at Brielle. Brielle closed her eyes. That answer ended what little doubt remained. The council removed Meredith from control of the Hayes estate and restored Laurel's inheritance and legal authority over her own affairs. Meredith was also barred from serving as guardian or trustee for another dependent. At Laurel's request, the council went further. No family under the crown could secretly administer wolf suppressants to an adult or child without documented medical necessity and independent review. Laurel had come there expecting to reclaim her own life. She left knowing another girl might never lose 6 years of hers. Outside the chamber, Brielle stopped her. I knew Mother treated you unfairly, she said. I did not know what the medicine was, but I knew enough to ask questions, and I did not. Laurel studied the cousin who had once worn her mother's gown while she sat behind a locked door. I believe you. Brielle's eyes filled with hope. Laurel continued. That does not mean I am ready to forgive you. Brielle nodded slowly. I understand. Maybe someday, Laurel said. It was not reconciliation. It was not revenge. It was honest. 6 weeks after the gala, Laurel stood with Everett on a quiet balcony overlooking the hills beyond Blackridge. Her strength had begun returning. Silas warned that her wolf might need months, perhaps longer, to recover fully. Everett had never asked her to hurry. The bond recognized you before I knew your name, he said. Laurel smiled faintly. That sounds dangerously close to fate making the decision for us. It recognized you, Everett replied. It did not choose for me. He turned toward her. I want to know what you choose. Laurel looked at him for a long moment. What if I never shift? Everett answered without hesitation. I chose to know you before I knew you could. Something inside Laurel relaxed, not because a king wanted her, because Everett had never asked her to become someone else before she was worthy of being wanted. She reached for his hand. Then I choose you too. 6 months later, the grand hall of Blackridge Citadel filled with silver light for Laurel's Luna ceremony. No locked room waited upstairs. No one stood between her and the people gathered to see her. Laurel walked toward Everett in a simple white gown, her mother's silver hairpin resting above one ear. Halfway across the hall, warmth spread through her chest. She stopped. The room went silent. Inside her, the presence that had once been only a whisper rose gently into something whole. Laurel closed her eyes. When she opened them again, a small silver she-wolf stood beside her in spirit, calm, healthy, unmistakably hers. Laurel laughed through tears. Everett smiled and lowered himself to one knee before her, not because her wolf was powerful, but because the woman standing before him had learned that dignity never depended on power in the first place. Later, beneath the open night sky, he offered his hand. Ready? Laurel looked back at the wide doors behind them. They were still open. I have spent enough of my life behind closed doors. Together, they walked into the moonlight. Maybe that is what Laurel's story leaves us with. People can repeat a label so often that eventually we begin carrying it for them. Weak, difficult, broken, unworthy. But another person's fear does not define our value. Real strength can be gentle. Real love does not silence us, control us, or decide for us. It gives us room to choose. I think Laurel became powerful long before her wolf returned, the moment she finally spoke in her own voice. What do you think mattered more, Everett choosing Laurel, or Laurel choosing herself? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if stories about courage, dignity, and second chances mean something to you, subscribe and join us for the next one.